What's up, degenerates? This is Locked In. I'm your host, Mason Cameron, at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishal Gupta, at Vishal_Gupta95 on Twitter. We're back home. We're back in our humble abodes after our show on the road last week down in Denver. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for everybody who came out for our short little quick hitter the other day. Hopefully, we won you some money there. Got together. We got to have some fun. So, I mean, that's what matters to me. But V, how are you doing? How was your holiday? Happy New Year. It's officially 2025. How you doing? How you living?
Doing good. Happy New Year to everybody tuning in today. Yeah, it was a great time. Great to get to hang out in person again last week and do a fun little halftime show to find some joy in an otherwise terrible Thursday night football game, as we all predicted. So, yeah, a good time, but also glad to be home and get excited for an interesting week 18 where I would say the majority of the games have not too much going on, but we're still going to break a lot of them down because there's always money to be won, even if these games don't totally matter.
Honestly, I think a lot of even just breaking these games down really just comes down to who actually has a game that matters that we can bet on and it'll make any sense. So I'm right there with you, but there are some good matchups, some teams that have it all on the line this week. And we're going to crack straight into it because we don't have a game to break down from Thursday. So that'll be a nice one. So we head right into it with a banger, with a barn burner on Saturday night. So you guys, there are another game. There are a pair of games, 2 games, right? I think on Saturday. Yeah. Yep. So we got some games on Saturday night. This is going to be one you're gonna want to watch. It's I believe the second game. I want to say the Detroit Cleveland game is on first, and then this is
Baltimore
the night.
Cleveland.
Yeah, Baltimore Cleveland. I said Detroit Cleveland. Baltimore Cleveland, another powerhouse team. But the second game you're going to want to watch here, we have the Cincinnati Bengals heading into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. This is going to be a good one. Cincinnati is actually 2.5-point road favorites here. It looks like you can actually even get it down to 1.5 points. It looks like they're listing it at Caesars, so you guys might want to check that one out. As well, the game total on this one somewhere around 48 points, and we both have a little bit of skin on this one, and I'm just going to pull off the Band-Aid right now.
Yeah,
because this is a little out there for us. We're usually on Mike Tomlin's boys, especially at home, getting some points gifted to him. But we're leaning Cincinnati in this one, taking this one home, -1.5 or -2.5, wherever you're going to get it. Personally, obviously, I think you're going to like it a little bit more at the -1.5. You're not really getting great money line value from what we've been seeing around. It's about -130. I think you're better off just taking the cover at about 1.5 to there. This is something that we talk about a lot. But some of the trends that we've just seen is kind of why we have to lean away from Pittsburgh and what they've been doing as of recent. It just hasn't looked as good, and it's actually lost me as much money as they've pretty much won me early on in the year. So Pittsburgh, they've fallen to 10-6 against the spread, and that was after having one of the best against the spread records in the NFL at 10-3. They have dropped their last 3, and that was all as dogs in all versus playoff caliber teams. They lost by 2 or more touchdowns in each of those and scored no more than 17 points. So it's a very, very bad look for them right now. Cincinnati, on the other hand, they have the same against the spread record. They're 10-6. So on the surface, you'd be like, hey, not a bad matchup there, pretty even. But that's after covering their last 4. Now, granted, against a little bit easier of a schedule, but those were all his favorites, and they've been fighting for these long shot playoff odds for about a month now. They've been in winner go home mode, and they've been playing about as hot as any team in the NFL. Their biggest Achilles heel was that defense, and now that defense is playing inspired. They've been turning over the ball a little bit. They've been playing a much more solid brand and prideful defense. The last time these teams played, though, it was a shootout back in Cincy at the beginning of December. They lost 44 34-38. I know a lot of people probably remember that one. That was a great game, a barn burner. And I can't wait to see it break down again. But yes, I think that when we think about how good this Cincinnati team has been, you just kind of have to lean that way. V, what are you getting a read off of on this game?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, taking Cincy. I got him at -1.5, but would still take them up to -2.5. Like you said, must-win game for Cincy if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. They've won 4 in a row, and obviously the big reason has just been Joe Burrow has been absolutely fantastic, just completely on fire right now. 8 straight games where he has at least 250 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. That is just unbelievable. There are many, many teams out there who don't have those kind of numbers for an entire season. Joe Burrow has done that in 8 straight games, doing everything he can to keep the Bengals alive in the playoff hunt. And this is all despite his defense and special teams just failing him time and time again. Even going back to last Saturday, I know you probably don't want to relive this one, Mason, but what happened in the fourth quarter and overtime of that Broncos game where they give this miracle touchdown at the end of the regulation to tiny ass Marvin Mims. Then he missed a chip shot field goal in overtime. And then he again gets the ball back and drives you down the field. And this time punches it in just so there's no doubt about it. I mean, what Burrow is doing is just phenomenal. The offense has scored 24 or more points during those 8 games I was talking about, including 30 or more in 5 of those games. So it's just been terrific stuff. There are some injury concerns for Cincinnati that could play a part in this one. Chase Brown is listed as questionable after being a DNP all week. Remember, he got hurt after trying to go down at the 1-yard line to run out the clock last week. T. Higgins is listed as questionable, but he was a limited participant all week. And then Amarius Mims is also listed as questionable after being a DNP today in practice. So those are definitely some big ones to keep an eye out of. If any of those guys are out, definitely hurts Cincy's chances in this one. But I would still bet on them, primarily because you said it as well. It's just been tough to watch Pittsburgh the last few weeks. This is just an awful time for them to be collapsing, and that's kind of exactly what's going on. This is on both sides of the ball, too. It's not just their offense. It's not just their defense. Both sides of the ball just not playing well right now. Lost 3 straight games, and they've scored 17 or fewer in all 3. And they've also allowed 27 or more in all 3 games. That is just not something you expect out of a Pittsburgh defense, a Mike Tomlin defense. You just expect so much more. They've set the standard for themselves so high that when they fall kind of so far below it, it is shocking to say the least. Russ has not played well recently. He's thrown for less than 220 yards in all of those 3 losses. Just 3 passing touchdowns during that stretch and has been sacked 10 times in those 3 games. It's also very interesting because they're playing after the Baltimore-Cleveland game that we mentioned. If Baltimore wins that game, they clinch the AFC North. So there's a situation where this game kicks off between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh does not have any chance to win the AFC North. They would have a chance to play for wildcard seeding, where if they win, they would get the 5 seed. But if they were to lose and the Chargers were to win, then Pittsburgh would fall down to the 6 seed, and they would have to play Baltimore again in the first round. So they would still have some stakes regardless of what happens in the Baltimore-Cleveland game. But if they no longer have a chance to win the division, is there a chance maybe they take their foot off the gas a little bit and don't go full speed, especially if the game is not going their way early on? I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do. But, interesting schedule quirk there just to keep an eye on. But overall, the way Joe Burrow is playing, you can't bet against the guy.
Yeah, and in terms of, like, when you talk about narrative motivational factors, like, the Bengals have every reason to play with their tail on fire.
Yeah.
Because they have been just pushing it to the limit all month long. They've been playing playoff standard football for 4 or 5 games now.
Sure.
They've been playing way, way better. And on the opposite, Pittsburgh just collapsed. Their pass rush isn't as strong anymore. And you have to understand that they're going to have to play Cincy differently because they love to play cover 1. They love to play 1 high. They're just not going to be able to do that against a guy like Ja'Marr Chase. So that's something that they really do have to find matchup advantages in and really make sure that they know where he's at the entire time. And frankly, when we talk about it, Joe Burrow's the MVP of the league. Joe Burrow is the MVP of the league this year. And I know that Lamar has having a phenomenal season. You know, he's a 2-time winner and he's having an even better season than he's had in the past. And that has to be taken into consideration 100%. But I think it all goes into what narrative-based awards are, where, yeah, we can't give it to them because they have a lesser record. They're 8-8, but it's like this guy has been playing the best football in the NFL right now, and I would not want to face them.
Yeah.
They just spanked the Broncos, my team, just last week. So, I mean, we all saw what they can do when they're really pushed up to the limit. And if you talk about what Pittsburgh's going to have on their plate, it's kind of like the lowest motivational factor. Like they're in the playoffs. Their only motivation is to avoid Baltimore again and keep their seeding because they're not going to be able to climb. So that's just not really going to move the needle for a lot of dudes in the locker room. They're probably going to try to play it conservatively. And if this one maybe gets too out of hand, or, you know, like you said, they take their foot off the gas a little bit, I would say that this is a very, very reasonable line to hit, even if they were full strength, or I mean, even if they were, you know, full go and fully motivated. But I just don't know that that's going to be the way that this one goes. I think it's going to be a fairly simple cover for you. Man, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They are going. I know that it comes at the detriment of the Broncos, but I would love to see them in the playoffs, man.
How can you say no to Josh Allen, Joe Burrow in the first round of the playoffs? I mean, come on.
You can't.
That's as good as it gets.
That's as good as it gets, for real. So
Let's do it.
that is the first game on the slate there to win you back some of that fantasy football money now that fantasy championships are over. How was that? How was your playoffs, partner? You got knocked out, right? We were talking about it.
Yeah, round one.
Round one.
The Rams put up that stinker on Thursday night against the Niners. Just couldn't get anything going. That tanked my season, unfortunately.
That's okay, though, because now we're just winning all that money back right here. Or we technically already won that back because we've been betting these all year long. The next game on the slate here is another one with some playoff implications, and that we both have some skin on, again, in the same way. So New Orleans is heading into Tampa to take on the Bucs. The Bucs are looking to secure the division crown over Atlanta. Both Atlanta and Tampa kick off at the same time. Atlanta plays Carolina. So there's not going to be any scoreboard watching. Expect both of those teams, both of those games to really bring it all. But when we talk about it, Carolina's been playing pretty decent ball until they ran into this Tampa team and absolutely stubbed their toe, for lack of a better term. And then when we look at the opposite end, I don't know how else you say it. New Orleans is just playing as bad a football as I think we've seen any team play this year. They're extremely hurt. They're still hurt. Carr's out. Kamara's doubtful. I think Kendre Miller is out also. Yeah. So who's supposed to get the ball? They don't really have anything left. It's tough. It's the last game of the season. I fully expect them to be checked out, and I fully expect Tampa Bay to go guns to the wall or backs to the wall, pedal to the metal, guns out, whatever saying will make me hip with the kids. But like, that's the one that they have to win right here. And New Orleans, they're 32nd in touchdown drive percentage in December. That's 11.8%. That's really, really bad. 36 total offensive points in 5 games. 36. This Tampa Bay team scored 40 last week. This is going to be the easiest 14-point spread you ever get. But, of course, as we always talk about, shop around. So you don't have to get it at 14 and a half and go get it right now so you can get it at 13 and a half and not on Sunday morning when it's going to be at 14 and a half and probably pushing 15. So that's where I'm at with it, partner. You're also leaning towards Tampa Bay here, correct? Minus 13 and a half. Tell us what you're seeing in this one.
Yeah, Tampa Bay needs this win. They can clinch the South regardless of what happens in the Atlanta-Carolina game. So absolutely, they're going to be playing this one full out, no breaks, nothing like that. So I think this spread is very achievable. Baker, just like we talked about with Joe Burrow, also playing phenomenal football. Over his last 4 games, 14 touchdowns and just 4 interceptions. He has a passer rating of over 97 in every single one of those 4 games. This rushing game for Tampa Bay is probably one of the more underrated storylines in football right now, just how incredible they have been despite having multiple guys back there. Rushing game is elite. They've rushed for over 150 yards in 5 of their last 6 games. They are 3rd in the league in rushing yards per attempt. just phenomenal stuff by Liam Cohen and that staff over there in terms of how they've set up this rushing attack. Because just going back a couple of years ago, even with Tom Brady there, I think a lot of the talk was they just really cannot run the ball very well. They kind of have this rotating cast of guys in there, and they just can't really seem to get it going. They also have a similar rotating cast of guys there this year, but it's just on fire and unstoppable. So it's shout out to those guys. They're doing a great job. And then the big thing, like you said, Saints have just been a disaster. 10 total points in the last 2 games, including a double-digit home loss to the Las Vegas Raiders. That is like impossible to do. Like you should just stop being a franchise if you are losing at home by double digits to the Las Vegas Raiders. That's unacceptable. They've scored less than 20 points in 5 straight games. In 4 of his 5 starts this year, Spencer Rattler has a completion percentage of 56% or less. He has just 3 touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the season. The Saints as a team have rushed for less than 100 yards in 4 straight games. And like you mentioned, that's not going to get any easier in this game because Kamara is doubtful and Kendre Miller is out. So who are they giving the ball to? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who just signed with the team. Like, it's just not a good situation. The defense also not playing well. They have 1 takeaway over their last 6 games. So there's just nothing going right. You know, they had a nice coaching change bump at the very start when Rizzi took over, but that has completely faded away. All Tampa Bay in this one.
Yeah. And, you know, you talk about Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler now 0-5 against the spread as a starter in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about this isn't even the biggest spread they've had all year. They were 2 weeks ago. They were 14-point dogs on the road in Green Bay, and now they're 14-point dogs on the road in Tampa. They scored nothing in that Green Bay game, 34-0.
Literally 0.
Only shutout of the entire year, which is hilarious because we didn't get a chance to talk about that because we've been traveling for the holiday and whatnot. But what is going on there? This is the team. This is kind of what this is like the weirdest team ever because they were like looking so good. And it just shows you the volatility of the NFL. Looking so good the first 2 weeks, absolutely plummeted. Got that interim coaching bump, and then just went right back down to plummeting. So
you know who the real MVP of the year should be? Taysom Hill. Because once that guy went out, this team collapsed.
Taysom Hill, most valuable player. You guys heard it here first. No, I agree though. It's just like what has happened to this team. I don't even know if you can like actually pinpoint it into any single one spot. I mean, obviously having no Derek Carr is a huge detriment to this team, but like that doesn't explain why they sucked for the middle half of the year. So I don't know. Frankly, it's been tough, and this is, dare I say, maybe the least desirable job out there that's going to be available this offseason. So
yeah, it's one of them for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So quick and easy on that one. Definitely fade New Orleans, lean on Tampa. They're going to take you to the promised land. The next game we have on the list here, a little bit of a wait and see for the Eagles as they're kind of like teetering on some playoff seeding hopes. And they've had some struggles. I know Jalen Hurts, I believe he was ruled out in this one.
Most of their team is going to be out on this one. They've already released the injury report. They're playing very few starters, if any, in this game.
Very, very light on the starters. So we have New York heading into Philly to take on the Eagles. It looks like the Eagles are 2.5-point favorites here as well. Mm-hmm. Game total on this one, about 37.5 points. It looks like possibly even trending downwards if you guys shop around a little bit. You have some skin in the game here on the total.
Yep.
And you are liking the over at 37.5 or potentially lower if you guys can shop around and buy it. Break it down for us. What are you seeing in this one?
Yeah, definitely liking the over in this game. I think this total is kind of an overreaction to what we talked about with Philly not playing a lot of their guys, but I think that could be a benefit in terms of hitting this total because Giants are playing their guys even if they don't have, great guys. They still have starting caliber players, and we saw that last week. This Giants offense exploded against the Colts last week, 42 points. Drew Lock had 5 total touchdowns, just a fantastic performance by him. Neighbors had a monster day, 171 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns on 7 catches. Philly, they're going to be resting the majority of their defense as well, so this could be another massive game for the Giants offense with guys like Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy going off. For Philly's offense, Kenny Pickett is questionable after being a DNP all week. He took that big shot against the Cowboys last week, so it could be a Tanner McKee start this week. But he looked fine last week. Very, very limited snaps, but he was 3 for 4 with 2 touchdowns. The Giants defense is still horrendous. They gave up 33 points to a Flacco-led Colts team last week. So even with backups in there, I think Philly is capable of scoring like 10 to 17 points in this game against a bad Giants team. And then you really just need 21 to 27 points from this Giants team, who, again, they have capable playmakers, and they're playing against a Philly defense that is also going to be on their backups. I think there's potential for like big plays in this game, and for such a small total, like you really just need to get to 40 points. I think that's very, very doable in this game, even with a lot of backups in play for Philly. So give me the over in this one.
I like it. Tanner McKee's not going to have a first touchdown ball chucked into the stands this time. Poor guy.
Yeah.
No, I agree though too. I not gonna lie, I was in and out on Sunday doing some stuff out on vacation, and checked in on some scores, and I let out a laugh. I laughed
like every
so
time
hard.
you looked at it, the Giants had more points. Like every time they just had another touchdown,
every single time, and I could not even comprehend it. Go back and watch a little bit, and it's disappointing because it shows you that they could have had some sort of potential. They have some game-changing playmakers, and it really comes down to, I don't know, play calling, inspiration. I don't really know where you want to put it, but they've got some building blocks to build on in the future, and they just need some changes, and they're gonna be rolling. So
if you want to listen to Brian Daboll, he put it squarely on the quarterback. He said, "See what happens when you get good quarterback play." So seems like he's throwing a lot of his guys under the bus, which was interesting tactic by him.
It's also hilarious to equate excellent quarterback play with the name Drew Lock. I'll just say that
also
much.
Very funny.
The next game on the list, I don't know if I can do it, V. I don't know if I can break this one down. Kansas City heading into Denver to take on the Broncos. Denver, 10.5-point favorites here. Obviously, Kansas City locked it all up. They are going to be taking an extra rest this week, playing the B team, going in there. That's why we have such a big spread right here. 10.5 points. Game total on this one, about 40 points, depending on where you're shopping. V. Which way are you leaning on this one, partner?
I just can't bring myself to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs when they're getting this many points. I don't care who's starting for them and who's sitting out. But like you said, Kansas City is pretty much sitting all of their starters in this game because they have literally nothing to play for. They have the 1 seed locked up, so they are going to be turning to Carson Wentz under center, which is why the spread is as big as it is. But they still have Andy Reid as their coach, and I'm going to bet on that guy every single time when you're getting this many points. Wentz, his last start was week 18 of last year when he was with the Rams. He went on the road in San Francisco and had a pretty solid day, 17 of 24, 163 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Kansas City, just as a team, does not lose by double digits very often. Only once in the last 3 seasons have they lost a game by double digits. It was coincidentally this very same matchup where they went into Denver last year and they lost 24-9. But since taking over as a starter, Mahomes has only missed 4 games, regular season games, whether that was due to injury or because he was resting in week 18 like he is. And this game, in those 4 games, Kansas City's gone 2-2, and they've only one of those 2 losses was by double digits. So again, this team just does not lose by double digits very often under Andy Reid because he's just too good of a coach. So I know Denver has everything to play for. They have to win this game to ensure a playoff spot because if they lose, then you're opening the door for Miami or Cincinnati to move past them. And, I'll grant you Denver's probably going to win this game, but 10.5 is too much. Carson Wentz is still a capable quarterback. Andy Reid is still a phenomenal coach, even with their backups in there. 10.5 is too many points, so give me the Chiefs.
Well, and you have to also take into account that the pressure situation that if Cincinnati ends up winning,
right?
The pressure does go on to Denver to go ahead and they have to.
That game happens first. Remember that Cincinnati game is Saturday. This KC Denver game is on Sunday, so we will know what Denver is playing for heading into this game.
Right. Yep. Tino's got it. And Tino, I see your question here. Let's see. Burrow, Jackson, 2.5 touchdowns. Gesicki, Andrews, 24.5 receiving yards. So is that each or together, or tell us a little bit more? And we'll help it break it down. If we're talking about combined Burrow, Jackson, 3 total touchdowns, I would say over, Gesicki, Andrews. I like it.
I like it for Andrews for sure. I think Gesicki is not necessarily getting the target share right now to make you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So, and also for the Burrow Jackson one, like if we're counting rushing touchdowns, I would take the over individually on both of them. If they're just passing touchdowns, I would definitely still take the over on Burrow, but I might stay away from Jackson just because he does tend to get a rushing touchdown in there, thrown in there. So make sure you read the rules on that one and find out if it's both passing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns or just passing touchdowns.
Yeah. I agree.
And at some point,
2.5
the Ravens could take their starters out. If they're winning huge
right
third quarter, like don't be shocked if they do end up, going to their backups because they'll have the division wrapped up at that point.
Because that's another thing, which is why we're hesitant on the total for the game in general, because the total for the game is 20. And like on the surface, you're like, yeah, I mean, Baltimore is probably 20 points better than a DTR-led Cleveland team, sure. But the question is, they go up by 3 scores, 12 minutes left in the third. I could definitely see them starting to take off some guys and take out some stars because they want some rest. So It's a little bit iffy. I do like the Andrews one. Well, you know what, too? If you come by the Discord, Tino, I don't know if you're in our Discord either, importantnonsense.com. That's where you become a member. But if you come by our Discord, we can also talk through some other stuff and craft some up. Hi, cat. Little obligatory cat.
Yeah.
There you go. Go down. Okay. But anyway, so let's see. What were we talking about?
Kansas City,
Chiefs Broncos. So yeah, 10.5 points is just a little bit high. I mean, the thing that's tough is like we don't know what they're gonna get, but you also are coming into the fact that that like this is a division game too, and even the Chiefs backups are going to really want to stick it to Denver as well. And if the pressure is kind of put on Denver because the Bengals win, it makes it a little bit of a tough draw there. So it's going to be something that we're going to see. I think 10.5 is still a lot of points. I would
stay away, maybe.
My heart tells me that I shouldn't get involved in this.
Yeah.
But I think 10.5 is too many points. 10.5 is too many.
A lot. Yeah.
If it were 9.5,
maybe.
I might go the other way. I don't know.
That's fair.
But yes. So that's it on Denver KC. The next game on the slate here, we have Miami heading into New York to take on the Jets, and this one's all over the place, y'all. You'll have to shop this one around. I can't even begin to tell you what the spread or the line of it is right now because it's all over the place. You have it in 1.5 for the Jets in some spots. You have it in 1 for Miami in some spots. Just look around, take whatever you're liking, and frankly, you're probably just going to want to lean on the money line if that's the way that you're going. Looks like depending on where you're shopping, you're going to get it roughly at about even money, minus 102. It looks like at both DraftKings and FanDuel. So you guys can kind of pick your poison there, whichever way you are leaning for it. But what we have some skin on here is the game total. And V, you are targeting the game total in this one. We're looking at about 39 points. Which way are you leaning, partner?
Yeah, I'm liking the under in this game at 39. This is a very interesting scenario because we've been talking so much about Denver or Cincinnati getting into that 7 seed. Miami is also still alive for this 7 seed, and we're kind of just, I think, majority of the media is just not talking about it, kind of skipping over it because, one, it's not a pleasant thought, this Miami team making the playoffs right now, just based on what we've seen. I don't think anybody wants to see it. But the other problem is that it looks like Tua is not going to play again this week. He is listed as doubtful after being a limited participant all week. McDaniel came out and said that they are preparing for Tyler Huntley to once again start in this game on the road against the Jets. In the 4 games that Tyler Huntley has played this year, Miami has scored 20 or fewer points in every single one of them, including 3 games where they scored 15 or fewer points. Tyler Huntley has played a total of 244 offensive snaps this year, and he has just 3 total touchdowns on those snaps. So he is just not playing very good football, not inspired football, not anybody you would feel confident betting in over on a game total when he is in the game. And then the Jets offense, I mean, what can you say about them? They had a very mini resurgence there like a couple weeks ago at the beginning of the month where they put up really good performances against, team, this same Miami team and Jacksonville. But since then, they've gone back to being a dud. 23 total points in their last 2 games. And Aaron Rodgers got benched last week after a terrible performance, 12 of 18, 112 passing yards, 2 interceptions, and 4 sacks against the Bills last week. He has come out and said this could potentially be his last game in the NFL. So it's just not going well anywhere for the Jets. They're not playing well, even though they have all their guys out there. They still have Devontae playing. They still have Garrett Wilson playing, still have Breece Hall playing. But you just cannot trust them to score any points right now, and you definitely can't trust Tyler Huntley to score points for Miami. So I'm just going to take the under and not think about this game any more than I have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the safest way to look at it. So I was just looking at some of the metrics too for Huntley. Huntley has a single big time throw in his 119 dropbacks this year, but he has 5 turnover worthy plays. So just because he has a 2-to-1 pass touchdown to interception ratio, it looks a little bit more favorable than it really is. He's kind of been significantly subpar, and if some of those turnover worthy plays went the other way, those games that he started would have been even worse than they really did go. And Tito brings up another good point. If Nick throws a few picks, that'll say it all. Yeah, like in that last game too as well. I continue to harp on the Jets, but I think it just shows you how like locker room camaraderie. So like take a team that we were talking about a few games ago, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
They play with a guy like Baker Mayfield, who every week it seems like you look up and this guy is 15 yards downfield trying to throw a block for somebody.
Right.
And just having fun, and they're playing well, and it shows.
Yeah.
You can tell when a team like the Jets, they're just dysfunctional because of personalities within their locker room, frankly.
When you have a star player like Garrett Wilson come out and say he does not want to be on the team next year if Aaron Rodgers is still there, like, you have major problems.
Exactly. Like 100%. And his fingerprints have already been all over what this team allocated to bringing in like his favorite wide receiver who's a little bit over the hill. And it's not even necessarily his fault. They're just trying to ask him to do stuff that he's just frankly not comfortable doing anymore, which is a tough look for them. They are a detriment to their ability to check out of stuff. Him and Davante Adams, Rodgers and Davante Adams. They will check out of things. You see him check out of stuff and then throw a ball and just like misplace it a tiny little bit. Balls that they used to be able to like pull in, and those plays aren't working now, and they're like confused. And it's like, well, because you don't really have an offensive philosophy. You throw one-on-one back shoulder balls, and yes, Aaron Rodgers is still probably one of the best, if not the best, back shoulder thrower in the NFL. Is that going to win them a bunch of games or have them producing a lot of offensive production? No.
Nope.
And that's been the issue all season. And they've started slow, and they've been a team that we've chased around all season betting against and picking on. And that's a big reason why, is because their offensive inefficiencies. And when you have, like you said, when you have a guy like Garrett Wilson, who's as talented as he is, saying, I want nothing to do with this guy, like that tells you all you really need to know. So I'll take the team that is, trying a little bit harder, even though if they have Tyler Huntley over whatever the Jets are picking. So I would lean on Miami to win this, especially with their playoff hopes in line. And you are leaning on the under at 39. I agree. This game probably should have been 36.5 points, but
probably
here we are. The next game on the list here, we have the Chargers heading into Vegas.
Yep.
Antonio Pierce doesn't care about those losses. He doesn't care about your draft projections. Okay. He wants to win the games.
Yeah,
Los
that's tough.
Angeles -4 on the road here. Game total on this one about 41.5 points, depending on where you're shopping. V, you have some skin here on the game total on this one as well. Which way are you leaning for that?
Yeah, I'm liking the over in this one at 41.5. I think the Chargers offense been terrific the last two games, 34 and 40 points respectively. They had over 380 yards of total offense in both games. Justin Herbert, fantastic in that stretch, 5 touchdowns and a passer rating of over 110 in both of those games. They got J.K. Dobbins back last week from injury, and that is going to be a huge boost for their offense because, let's be honest, their rushing attack, which is not looking very good during the time when J.K. Dobbins was out. So getting him back would be big. The Chargers do have something to play for. It's the same situation with the Steelers that we mentioned earlier, where they're playing for wild card seeding. If they win and Pittsburgh loses, they would jump up to the 5 seed and they would get to play the Texans. Whereas if they stay in the 6 seed, they would have to go on the road to Baltimore. So I would imagine that the Chargers, and especially given where this line is at minus, 4.5, depending on where you're getting it. Odds makers also expect the Chargers to have their starters playing for at least a decent amount, maybe not the whole game, but for at least, a half, 3/4, whatever it is. So if we're going to get that amount of time with Justin Herbert out there, I think they're going to be able to put up a decent amount of points. On the flip side, Aiden O'Connell and that Raiders offense, they've been okay the last couple games. Nothing spectacular, but they've been moving the ball a little bit. Over 240 passing yards in each of his last 2 games for O'Connell. 2 passing touchdowns in those games. Nothing special, but the big thing is 0 turnovers in his last 2 games for O'Connell. That has allowed the Raiders to put up a few points here and there. They scored 19 points 2 weeks ago against the Jags and then 25 points on the road last week against the Saints. If they can score just like somewhere in that range, this should be a very, very easy over because I expect the Chargers to score in the mid-20s. And then if you can get the Raiders to score just like 19 or 20, you're going to be hitting a game total of about 43, 44, 45 points. So definitely like the over in this game.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, when you look at what they did to New Orleans, we talked about how bad New Orleans is, but I was shocked seeing the Raiders play ball. Like, they
ran the ball well. They threw the ball pretty good. Well, nothing crazy, but it was
nothing crazy.
Efficient.
They're not at full strength, but they're playing like they do want to win these games. And I know that I just made fun of Antonio Pierce for wanting to win these games, but they're not quitting. They're not going to quit. So having a nice lower game total like 41.5 is very, very reasonable for this game as well. I think you probably even could have put it a touch higher in the 43, 44 range, kind of that mid range there. But yeah, no, I completely agree. 41.5 is a good total. 2 straight games, like 2 decent outings from Vegas. And then, we have to talk about what the Chargers were able to accomplish last week. Like you said, Dobbins back, hung 40 on New England on the road. Like, did not look like they even broke a sweat at any point. And then you have to go back to, the big game with the Broncos. Like, that was a huge game. And obviously they were rested from that game to last week, having, I think, 9 days off, 10 days off, something like that. But, reasonably, they look like a completely different team versus what we saw when Tampa came and rolled them 40-17, at home. So I really, really like where you're leaning this way as well. And I would also even lean towards them covering the 4. I think 4 is a really reasonable number for them to cover. It looks like it's trending the opposite direction and going up to the 4.5, 5 range, which it'll probably end up closing at. But I think that it's very reasonable number to hit there. So completely agree with you on that.
Here we go.
The granddaddy of them all, the game that matters. We have the Minnesota Vikings heading into Detroit to take on the Lions. And this is for all the marbles, for the tops of the NFC, the division. This is it. This is a whole nother playoff game starting right now, and the winner gets to rest next week. So Let's break it down. Minnesota is +3 on the road here, and I love it.
I love it too.
I love it. I'm going to go ahead and take them. Minnesota +3. This team has the best against the spread, win percentage in the NFL. They're 11-4-1 this season. They've covered their last 4. They're 3-0 as dogs this year, and they're 4-2-1 on the road. And when we talk about this, they're going to another dome. So it's not like they're playing outside. They're going to be in comfortable conditions. They are 2-1-1 in December. Detroit 11-5 against the spread. They're 2-1-1 in December, but they're only 4-4 as home favorites. So a little bit to be desired. And if we turn back the clock to the last time these two teams played, it was a barn burner. It was a great game. 31-29. Detroit ends up taking it at the last minute with the game-winning field goal by Jake Bates. But the big crux for this one, Detroit. They're a little bit limpy into this one, and it's not a great look for... This might be kind of the beginning of the end of their really Cinderella playoff run, and it's really due to injuries. Aiden Hutchinson, hopefully they can make it deep enough in the playoffs that he can come back. Aleem McNeil, he tore a knee. Marcus Davenport, Carlton Davis broke his jaw. He's out, and I cannot stress enough how big the Carlton Davis loss is going to be for them against teams that can throw the hell out of the ball. They are going to struggle with light cornerback room because they're also missing Ennis Rakestraw. Young corner, he's played fantastic. He was great in the slot. It's just been a tough draw for them as they continue to drop corners. Derek Barnes, he's also hurt, and that's just on the defensive side of the ball. David Montgomery, he tore a knee. He's going to be out. It's just a lot of these very crucial and key contributors to this Detroit's team's success, kind of the unsung heroes of why this team was so good. Everybody talks about Jared Goff. Everybody talks about Jahmyr Gibbs. Everybody talks about Amon-Ra St. Brown. But some of these guys, especially defensively, and I mean, everybody talked about David Montgomery too, but these guys defensively did not get all the play, particularly a guy like Carlton Davis, where his importance and his physicality on the edge really set the tone for this defense. Now their best corner right now is a rookie first rounder, which great player, excellent player. Terrion Arnold is fantastic player, but he's struggled a little bit getting his feet under him this season at times. He's let a little bit of separation go, and he's still young. He's still green. And this is going to be a team where he's going to have to lock up Jay Jetta all game long. I don't know that I see it. I don't see it happening. I'm going to be leaning towards Minnesota and the points in this one. Partner, is there anything that you're seeing in this one as well?
Yeah, I definitely think the key matchup in this one is Minnesota's offense against Detroit's defense because, I know Detroit's won their last couple games, but defense didn't look all that great. They were able to get some turnovers against the 49ers and Bears that really helped seal that win, but they gave up a ton of yards. Like Brock Purdy looked really, really good in their game last week. I think he had 4 total touchdowns. They did pick him a couple times, which really helped seal the win in that one. And then a couple of weeks ago against the Bears, only scored 17 points, Chicago did, but Caleb had a nice day stat-wise. He threw the ball all over the yard, had a couple touchdowns, and had a good passer rating, good PFF grade. So they are, allowing opposing quarterbacks to put the ball in the air and get a chunk yardage all the time. So you're not going to be able to get away with that against this Vikings offense the same way you could against San Fran and Chicago. Like Darnold has done a fantastic job taking care of the ball, phenomenal job getting the ball down the field. Shout out to him. Shout out to Kevin O'Connell. They've been a phenomenal pairing. So you're not going to be able to slow down this offense with Jefferson, Addison, and all those guys out there. So getting a full 3 points is pretty crazy. I would probably take Minnesota to win on the money line too. I just think they're playing that good of football, and I think they are significantly healthier than Detroit is right now. So, yeah, give me the Vikings +3 in this one.
Since Thanksgiving, Detroit is 0 2-1 against the spread. All as favorites, obviously. 3-point game with Chicago. 3-point game with Green Bay. A 6-point loss with Buffalo. And now we're playing Minnesota. I think you're going to see a similar theme as this team has continued to get more and more hurt over those weeks. And yeah, like you said, I'm taking them on the money line. I know last week was really vogue for everybody to say Green Bay was going to go ahead and take down Minnesota and we weren't going to get the week 18 that we all thought we were. But I think that game showed you everything that you needed, that this Minnesota team is absolutely for real. I mean, they've been showing us all season, but this Minnesota team is absolutely for real. I think they have their eyes on the number 1 seed, and I think they're going to do really well with it. Now we have to see what they're going to do in the playoffs, and that's going to be an interesting conversation that we'll definitely have this same time next week, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. You guys are going to want to be there because now we're going to break into all the fun stuff with the playoffs. V, that does it.
Yeah.
That wraps us up for the regular season flashbang on our way out. That wraps us up for the 2024 regular season betting preview. We are back every single week through the end of this thing. So you guys keep it locked in. Come and check it out. Win some more money with us. It's going to be a good time. This is going to be a crazy playoff run. I literally can't wait to see it go down. Like I said, back same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. ImportantNonsense.com. That's how you become a member into our Discord. You can ask us all of your betting questions in there, and you can leave the fantasy guys alone because now your season's over and you don't have to worry about that. And now you lay in the palm of our hands.
Yeah.
So anyway, V, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
Just thanks to everybody for tuning in every week during this regular season. It was a blast getting to cover these games and talk about it with everyone here, and hopefully everybody won some money. But season doesn't end here. Like you said, Mason, playoffs are just about to get started, and that is where the true action lies. Super excited. We're going to have phenomenal matchups every single week, so tune in again, and we're going to probably hit every game during the playoffs, unlike we do with the regular season, because there's so many games with the playoffs. I think we'll have time to hit all of them, so it'll be a great time.
It's going to be a good one. Can't wait to do it again, partner. And until next time, everybody, good night, good luck.